Only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday, or as Tom like to think of it, Friday Eve edition. How you doing, Fancy Brian?
I like the Friday Eve. I like it.
Sort of longing for the weekend.
I don't know about longing, but it's more like, by the way, Friday.
It's coming soon. Well, that's tomorrow's big show, and we'll air the grievances then. No grievances about my fine co-devil coming a little later this hour. John Nichols from The Nation. You know him. You love him. Stay tuned. 3:30. But do you know what's going on right now in this fine nation we live in? Something of a democracy festival. And when you talk about a summit for democracy, I guess that's what they're calling this event, a 2-day event. And I'm concerned, because if you've been watching our little democracy, it's somewhere, between where the Fry Festival and Travis Scott's Astro World kind of collide. Our democracy is something of a Trumpster fire, at least to this man's opinion. So the fact that Joe Biden is the host with the most at the Democracy Summit, a little ironic, just saying, but at least he's the president. Some people say, reporting John Wagner.
Allegedly
he's the president. John Wagner is reporting at the Washington Post, and we do have sound of your president in mind, Joe Biden. We'll play that in just a minute, but let's get started. President Biden warned world leaders today of a backward slide in democracy around the globe, especially right here, and urged them to champion a form of government that he said needs concerted work to be sustained through an inflection point in history. Now here, there are a lot of quotes, and we've got some of the sound. So Fancy Brian, let's fill in the blank. Let's give him the context. Starting with cut number 50, President Joe Biden today.
Will we allow the backward slide of rights and democracy to continue unchecked? Or will we, together, have a vision and the vision, not just a vision, the vision and courage to once more lead the march of human progress and human freedom forward?
I don't see the vision.
Well, it's talking about vision. That's the important thing, is you're talking about having vision.
Do we have the vision? Well, I can see that it's broken. I just don't see a lot of solutions in the offing. I don't see a lot of people trying to fix it. And you can say, well, Joe Biden, his heart's in the right place. No doubt. He's all down for democracy. Hell, he even serves from the Democratic Party. But here's my problem. He ain't doing enough. We're not doing enough not to uphold our own democracy. We cannot expect the courts to be the guardrails. We, the American people, we need to be the guardrails. Just saying.
Are you saying that people should take part in their own democracy?
I like an active and civically engaged electorate. I'm just down for people to pay attention.
Are you perhaps warning that if people do not pay attention and participate in their own democracy, that democracy might be in danger of being, removed from them?
I forget which paper, but something about democracies die in darkness or something of that effect.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Let's keep going. President Joe Biden. I'm not trying to crack the guy from the top. I'm just trying to point out the fragile state of our own democracy. But here he is, our president, Joe Biden, cut 51, danger from autocracies.
They seek to advance their own power, export and expand their influence around the world, and justify the repressive policies and practices as a more efficient way to address today's challenges. That's how it's sold.
Now, was that a little side eye at Putin? I mean, Putin apparently is gathering arms up against the Ukrainian border. And Joe Biden had a virtual conference with Putin earlier this week and told the man, you better not invade or there'll be really bad sanctions, but no U.S. troops.
So he didn't, get rid of the notes and have a private translator or anything like that. He didn't make it completely private.
It's always hilarious to me is Sean Hannity saying, why won't they just leak the transcripts of the phone calls like they used to do to Donald Trump? I think those were Trump administration officials leaking the quote unquote transcripts in desperation Like the world should know the man is selling his own country down the river to Putin, let's say. But anyways, let's get back to the big Summit for Democracy, a 2-day event. Joe Biden leading off the big event today, his speech in part, cut 52. We need champions and heroes. 52.
In the face of sustained and alarming challenges to democracy, universal human rights, and all around the world, democracy needs champions.
Democracy Avengers assemble.
I wish they would. More from Biden. Cut 53, please.
Democracy doesn't happen by accident. We have to renew it with each generation. And this is an urgent matter on all our parts, in my view.
I hope people feel the same urgency. I mean, you can nearly hear it in his tone. Nearly.
Almost there, buddy.
Constant effort. Joe Biden, President of the United States, cut 54, please.
We know as well as anyone that renewing our democracy and strengthening our democratic institutions requires constant effort.
It's a heavy lift. Kind of like this show. Cut 55. Decline in democracies. Look in the mirror, not at yourself, but on the place you live, Joe. 55.
More than half of all democracies have experienced a decline in at least one aspect of their democracy over the last 10 years, including the United States.
Yeah, there it is. One more. President Joe Biden. Defining challenge. Well, are we up for it? Cut 56.
In my view, this is the defining challenge of our time. Democracy.
Democracy. The defining challenge. Back to John Wagner at the Washington Post, his coverage. In my view, and this is quoting the president, in my view, the choices we make in this moment are going to fundamentally determine the direction our world is going to take in the coming decades. We will allow the backslide of democracy to continue unchecked, or will we together have a vision, encouraged to once more lead the march of human progress and human freedom forward? Fancy Brian will lead us. Biden's remarks came at the outset of the 2-day virtual Summit for Democracy. You know, if it's a Zoom conference, you know, people aren't really paying attention, right? They're doing their own thing. They just got it on playing in the background. A lot of them probably dropped the video.
It's hard to be inspired when you have no pants on.
Well, I'm often inspired when I have no pants on, but that's a whole different subject for a different show, perhaps. Once again, Biden's remarks came at the outset of the Summit for Democracy that he convened with the goal of rallying 110 invited nations against the forces of authoritarianism. His rallying cry came 11 months after the deadly attack on the democratic institution at home, the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol that interrupted Congress's count of the electoral votes from the November 2020 presidential election. Most of us remember that. A few conservatives are still out denying it ever happened. But anyways, coming up on the 1-year anniversary, I wonder how we're going to quote unquote celebrate the big event, the 1-year anniversary, Fancy Brian. Going to have to do a special event show.
I hope there's at least hot dogs.
We'll make sure you get fed that day.
That's really all I care about.
In his remarks, Biden acknowledged that the United States is among the nations that need to work to nourish its democracy. Yeah, a little fertilizer. Well, actually, I've heard a lot of fertilizing of the democracy. And he pledged to lead by example. Here in the United States, we know as well as anyone that renewing our democracy and strengthening our democratic institutions requires constant effort. We played you that sound. He cited voting rights as an example, urging Congress to pass legislation to counter restrictions that have been enacted in many Republican-led states since the last year's election. The problem is you cannot pass the Voting Rights Act, not even with the support of your own caucus. And of course, to get it through the U.S. Senate on a 50-50 vote, because apparently the Republicans are not exactly the Democratic small d party anymore. They're not so big on the Democrat process. So if you can't even keep your own caucus together, I mean, what are you going to do? You can't even pass it if you got around the filibuster. Biden said the Justice Department would double the number of lawyers defending and enforcing voting rights laws, adding, we should be making it easier for people to vote, not harder. Well, they are making it harder. They're trying. Biden also listed a handful of foreign aid initiatives the United States is undertaking to foster democracies, including steps to bolster independent media and combat corruption. Sorry, someone's calling me. I'm on the radio currently. Biden also listed a handful of foreign aid initiatives that the United States is undertaking. Pardon me, I think I read that part. Other initiatives aim to advance the role of women and girls in civic life and bolster the availability of an open internet. Speaking from a table where he was joined by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Biden addressed world leaders displayed on large screens in front of him. One more quote. In my view, this is a defining challenge of our time. Democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people, can at times be fragile, but it is also inherently resilient and capable of self-correction and is capable of self-improvement. Are we backsliding? Electric sliding? This one gets your ass on the dance floor, wouldn't it, Fancy Brian?
I like the steel drums in the background.
Boogie, woogie, woogie.
Yeah. I did this like once correctly, and I nearly fell over.
The Summit for Democracy. Hopefully it won't be, the Fry Festival. Did you watch the documentary on that?
I heard about it.
Kind of bad. Was it Coolio? I forget who exactly headed up that big.
I don't want to say it. Not Nelly. Maybe no. Oh my gosh, I'll get it back by the end of it.
Yes, you've been quite helpful. Thank you. Come back. More Devil's Advocates will be quite helpful.
Democracy matters, especially when it is inconvenient.
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Right now, we all feel a little disconnected. For seniors living alone, the isolation can be overwhelming. Connect with an older loved one and have the conversation of a lifetime at StoryCorpsConnect.org/AARP. A message from AARP, StoryCorps, and the Ad Council.
Hi, Don from Wisco Home Goods here. Jeremy and I handcraft our 100% non-toxic candles from locally sourced materials in our Madison, Wisconsin facility. Wisco Home Goods candles come in a variety of unique blends and scents that you're sure to love. Add a little warmth to your home as the days get colder with one of our Midnight Cypress or Up North candles. Order at WiscoHomeGoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing candles and more at WiscoHomeGoods.com.
Devil's Advocates know how to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and we're all out of bubblegum.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday Eve edition. Be joined very soon by John Nichols, a fine cold devil, joining me at 3:30. But Fancy Brian talking about the Summit for Democracy. Apparently, we're putting a show on for the world. Here's how you do democracy? Question mark. Well, I would point out right here in our own democracy, we talked about the January 6th, the insurrection, the domestic terrorism directed trying to overturn the outcome of the Electoral College vote. And how do we know this was the plan in part? Well, because the chief's chief, you remember Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to the president, wrote a little tell-all book and released some emails and some text messages and a PowerPoint presentation, and then said, well, I can't testify about all these documents I've just released of my own volition. And so anyways, he'll have his legal issues perhaps, but I want to talk about his plan. Let's call it a plan.
This is the longest PowerPoint presentation I think I've seen from this administration.
Well, as the headline here at the Raw Story says, revealed Mark Meadows possessed an insane blueprint for military seizing ballots after Trump's 2020 defeat.
Like, seriously, I think the healthcare plan was on one page, or the infrastructure plan was one page. This is more detailed than any other thing I've ever seen.
So this part of it, and I reviewed big chunks of this PowerPoint, but Karen Piper reported Mark Meadows turned over an email with a presentation that was to be provided on the Hill about January 6th. It's nuts. It's by A.S. OG and Phil Waldron, and had these recommendations. Here are just a few of the bullet points of this PowerPoint. Brief senators and congressmen on the foreign interference in the election. Declare a national security emergency. Foreign influence and control of electronic voting machines. I don't know if you know this, Fancy Brian, but their whole conclusion is that the election was stolen by the Chinese in conjunction with the Venezuelans. That's what's in this PowerPoint.
Well, luckily, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty here in Wisconsin just disproved that, so they can rest heavily. That's okay.
Well, here's another part of the PowerPoint presentation, the plan. And this apparently was presented on January 5th. Declare electronic voting in all states invalid. Here's one more bullet point, just from the reporting of Karen Piper. This is in the contents of the PowerPoint presentation that Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to Donald Trump, turned over. This was the plan. They made a PowerPoint. Here's another bullet point. Legal and genuine paper ballot counts or constitutional remedy delegated to Congress. Now, earlier in the PowerPoint presentation, there was lots of talk about the fact there's lots of fake ballots. There must be. And first, their plan is they're going to use, these special machines to differentiate between the fraudulent, the counterfeit ballots and the real ballots, kind of like you do with money.
Oh,
and I'm thinking, they don't have the same sort of watermarking and the stuff they stick in the money, the little strips that actually have the verification. It's hard to counterfeit money these days, but ballots probably not to the same level. So here is part of the plan. I shared this on the Devil's Advocates Facebook page, but this is down page 31 of 36. Count the ballot top level plan. A, get a trusted lead counter who will be appointed with the authority from the POTUS. Then when Mark Meadows references the POTUS, he means the former, right? He means Donald Trump. To direct the actions of select federalized National Guard units. Catch this? He's federalizing the National Guards to go count the ballots at the direction of Donald Trump, because of course he's the commander in chief. So I'm going to read this on. And support from DOJ, DHS, and other U.S. government agencies is needed to complete a recount of the legal paper ballots, because of course there's going to be lots of counterfeit ballots for the federal elections in all 50 states. They're going after all of them. The U.S. Marshals will immediately secure all ballots and provide a protective perimeter around the locations in all 50 states. We have 1,850 voting jurisdictions in the state of Wisconsin. How many U.S. Marshals are you going to dispatch to create a safe perimeter so the National Guard that's been federalized at the direction of Donald Trump can come to a state near you, a district near you, and differentiate between the counterfeit ballots, of course, put there by the Chinese and the Venezuelans, according to Mark Meadows' PowerPoint presentation, and then count only the fair ones. And then what then? Well, the DHS will use their emergency response logistic capabilities to support the effort. They will integrate IT support, and will include separating out the legal from counterfeit ballots and communications with all supporting the effort and cameras, possibly cell phones, in parentheses, he writes, imaging each and every ballot. These images will be distributed to the internet. And finally, page 31 of 36, the bullet points here on the PowerPoint presentation. The federalized National Guard in each state will be supplied detailed processes and be responsible for counting each legitimate paper ballot. Teams made up of 3. First couple of counties will be 5 National Guard members. Will do the counting. As the counting occurs, each ballot will be imaged, and the image is placed on the internet so any U.S. citizen can view them and count the ballots themselves. The process will be completely transparent.
I've just figured out why this report is more detailed than any other report from the administration. There's no annotation, which means they've completely pulled it out of their rear ends.
I think so. VP Pence seats Republican electors over the ejections of Democrats in states where fraud occurred. And VP Pence rejects the electors from states where fraud occurred, causing the election to be decided by the remaining electoral votes. And finally, VP Pence delays the decision in order to allow for a vetting and subsequent counting of all the legal paper ballots. You know, Mark Meadows predicted 5 to 10 days. That's all it'll take. We'll have all the messes cleaned up, and the rightful president, well, Donald Trump, of course, will, win. That's even in the PowerPoint. Come back, more devils with John Nichols.
I always believe in preparation. Get her.
That was your whole plan.
Get her. I'm an extremely stable genius.
I love this plan. I'm excited to be a part of it. Let's do it.
You're going to be dead.
WTTN 1580 AM News Talk Radio, built for the 99%, is rural Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
At Chaz Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodeled home at a time. Simply stated, we want to be a part of the solution to leave the world better than we found it. That's why we've invested in a 20 kilowatt solar array, which provides over 90% of our electrical demand at our shop, office, and design studio. And that's why we invest in local causes which provide opportunities and which confront structural inequality. At Chad's Design Build, we are proud to partner with you, building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
Wisconsin, you know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are champions on the court, but did you know they're also champions for our community?
Hey, Wisconsinites, Drew Holiday here.
And Brooke Lopez here.
I love being a champion.
And today I'm asking you to be a champion citizen.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote.
It's more important now than ever because politicians are trying to restrict our freedom to vote.
They're worried about our power, so they want to take it away.
Don't let them do that.
You've got to block that shot.
Paid for by the Wisconsin.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished lower. The Dow down less than a point. For coronavirus booster shots is widening. The Food and Drug Administration and the CDC lifted the last barrier. 16 and 17-year-olds can now get boosters. The AP's Ben Thomas has the story.
Complicating the decision to extend boosters to 16 and 17-year-olds is that the Pfizer shot and a similar vaccine made by Moderna have been linked to a rare side effect called myocarditis. It's a type of heart inflammation seen mostly in younger men and teenage boys. However, the FDA says with COVID-19 cases rising again, the benefits of boosters outweigh the potential risk. And the coronavirus itself can cause more serious heart inflammation than has been seen in cases where the side effect has appeared. I'm Ben Thomas.
Vaccine makers are racing to update their shots against the newest coronavirus variant, even before it's clear a change is needed, just in case. I'm Ed Donahue.
In times of fear, World Vision is there for the most vulnerable. For the last 70 years, we've been standing with kids and families through natural disasters, war, and disease, delivering life-saving aid and helping rebuild lives. And with every act of courage, faith, and love, we do more than just stop the spread of fear. We replace it with hope. Learn more at worldvision.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. School districts around the state are experiencing a delay in receiving federal COVID-19 relief funds due to Republicans on the state's Joint Finance Committee attempting to rewrite rules on how the funds are to be dispersed. As a part of the American Rescue Plan passed by Democrats in Congress and signed by President Joe Biden, Wisconsin is set to receive roughly $77 million to assist students who experience the greatest disruption to their education during the pandemic. But Wisconsin Republicans instead want to use the funds to reward districts that remain teaching in person the last 2 school years. The Wisconsin Badgers men's basketball team overcame a 22-point deficit last night to defeat the Indiana Hoosiers 64-59 to win their first game of Big Ten Conference play. Yesterday, State Senator John Erpenbach announced he will not seek re-election in 2022. Erpenbach has represented portions of Western Dayton County in the state Senate since 1999. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday Eve edition. We're now welcomed live via phone by one of our favorites. He is John Nichols from The Nation. He's a friend of ours. John, welcome back to the big show.
Hey, I'm glad to be with you, brother.
Well, I'm glad you joined me, John. I have many questions for you, and I want to start with the big Summit for Democracy event, this 2-day virtual event being hosted by President Joe Biden. John, I have to ask you, in nearly, all sincerity, are we the right nation to host a Summit for Democracy at this time in history?
Might have been a little more effective if, say, we had passed the For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and some of these other protections against voter suppression and actually overturning elections. That would have given us a little heft. Without doing that, we, I suppose, are a very good nation to host a summit on democracy because we might be able to pick up some good tips from other countries on how to do it.
Good point, John Nichols. You kind of caught me sideways with that one. John, the January 6th, the insurrection, nearly a year ago it happened. And we are finding out more and more public details. And the January 6th committee is issuing subpoenas. And apparently they're doing lots of, private depositions currently, including Ali Alexander, I believe, testifying today on the Hill, the Stop the Steal guy. But I want to ask you, John, about Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to President Donald Trump. Meadows, have you seen the PowerPoint presentation? John, have you reviewed any of it? And how troubling would it be to think that the plan was to use National Guard troops to basically go in and overturn the election in every state, utilize the U.S. Marshals, the Department of Homeland Security, and keep counting those ballots till Trump wins, was basically the plan. Have you seen any of it, John?
Yeah, well, I mean, it isn't really a big secret. In fact, I guess my regard for the 9/11 committee is a little bit weakened by the slowness with which they're approaching this thing. I'm hoping they could get something done before the actual anniversary. But look, it's quite clear now from the memos that have been revealed, from statements from people that were involved, and from, frankly, the ongoing messaging from Donald Trump himself, that there was a clear intent to overturn the results of a free and fair election, to prevent the candidate that the people of the United States chose by more than 7 million votes from becoming president. And, we could dance around that fact, but the reality is that Donald Trump and his allies, including and associates, people like Mark Meadows, engaged in an attempted coup. They failed, and that's very, very good. But I can, again, tell you that the participants in the Democracy Summit would remind you that those who engage in a failed coup are just as bad as those who engage in a successful coup. In fact, maybe even in some ways a little more frightening, because those who engage in a failed coup and are not held to account usually come back and try to do so again.
John, the party of where are Hillary Clinton's emails are now just fine with shielding, using claims of executive privilege or whatever other sort of scurrilous claims being made by Trump's defense and Mark Meadows' defense, et cetera, et cetera. John, what do you think about this? Will we see compelled testimony, or will the only testimony we see compelled be in criminal prosecutions?
Well, look, I would like to see the Congress actually, flex some muscles and do what it has a right and a power to do, which is to, demand that people who have been subpoenaed, people who have been called to testify, do so. The Congress finds itself in a weird position. They don't really have the capacity, or particularly sufficient capacity, to make people do things. They can investigate, they can, raise the issues, and I would argue that with the backing of a court, they could, in fact, compel testimony. But the likelihood is that what's going to happen with this committee is sort of a push and a pull, like something that you have seen in the past with the Watergate Committee, with the committee that investigated Iran-Contra, where you have some people are willing to testify, some who are not, some, in unsatisfactory circumstance that leads to some kind of report, and ideally some sorts of criminal, prosecutions that come out of that report. But, this is my problem. While I'm respectful of what the commission is doing, they're taking an awful long time to do it. They're being very secretive when I think they should be very much in public. I'd like to see them be much more aggressive. And frankly, I think the core thing that you're heading toward with this committee is not so much a moment where Donald Trump or Mark Meadows or other people come in and testify. I would love to see that, but I think what you're really aiming to do is to get some of the lower level people to, explain what was really going on, and more likely than not, get to some details as regards particular members of Congress who were participants in the coup attempt. And that's important because those members of Congress should be removed from Congress.
Yeah, you'd like to see it happen that way, John. I'm less convinced it will. Most communications
I'm not at all convinced at this point, I'm afraid.
Well, most communications are two-party. And John, here's the encouraging part. Whether Mark Meadows released one side of a conversation or whether it was one of the many other known or unknown people that have been subpoenaed by the January 6th committee, there are lots of communications that are being ferreted out from one side of the conversation or the other. But John, ultimately, we've got one party, the Republican Party, that's, anti-democratic. My question is the other party feckless? Can they do anything to stop it?
Feckless is such a cruel word. I'd like to think maybe they're just incompetent. But
my bad, John.
Yeah, I mean, look. The fact of the matter is that the Democratic Party lacks a sense of urgency on this issue, and it's bizarre because there's a great many people that are far more urgent than I think members of Congress are. Here's the bottom line. In a very short amount of time, the Democratic-controlled U.S. Senate is expected to go on recess, right? They're going to take off, about a month for Christmas and New Year's and Hanukkah and whatever other celebrations they may want to bring into the mix. And that's great, but, they haven't done anything of consequence to address the crisis that is going on. The Senate failed to convict Donald Trump of the high crimes and misdemeanor that he was charged and he was clearly guilty of. Since then, they have failed to pass legislation that would deal with at least the most concerning evidences of voter suppression, extreme gerrymandering, scheming to overturn elections. And, frankly, I don't think they've earned their holiday break. I think they should stay on the job until they pass these things. And I know that means, having to get, Joe Manchin to actually do something decent, and Kirsten Sinema and a few others. But, I find it jarring, shocking that these people are all planning to take their big, long break while around the country, state legislators, the Republican state legislators, and, lunatics like Michael Gableman are continuing to pursue efforts to either, if not overturn elections, to prepare to overturn the next one.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got to find Code Devil for a while longer. He is John Nichols from The Nation. John, I want to ask you about the media's coverage of the Biden presidency, perhaps in contrast to the Trump presidency. And Trump, obviously, he'd get on Twitter every morning, sit on the gold-plated toilet, and he'd create a fresh outrage. And he'd move the entire, news cycle damn near each and every day for good or bad reasons, mostly bad. Now, Joe Biden, a little more boring by comparison, doesn't, tweet in the same sort of way, doesn't create the same sort of infighting or, he's not the ratings machine that perhaps Donald Trump is. But there have been a few issues. I mean, right now, I look at the economy. The economy is cooking right now. The S&P had the best year in its history, up 37%, while Joe Biden's been the president. I don't hear any coverage of that. Hell, I don't hear coverage of that barely on the financial news. John, does the media give Joe Biden a fair shake?
No, but I wouldn't expect them to give him a fair break. Look, by and large, media is tough on presidents. Some they give a better break than others, but it's I think that there's clearly some evidence of an unfairness there, but that's not something you blame the media for. You got to blame the people involved. And the fact of the matter is that the Biden administration has not done a good job of blowing its own horn. It's also not done a good job of advocating for its own programs. It's not, this is an administration that reflects the president. The president is a veteran of the United States Senate, 36 years in that chamber, 8 years as vice president, effectively the president of the Senate. So, the vast majority of his adult life has been spent, as an insider, as somebody working on Capitol Hill inside the Beltway and thinking that that's the way to do stuff. He's the president of the United States now. He has to start taking it outside of the Capitol, outside of the Beltway to the American people and make his own case. And he might also want to get his vice president, Kamala Harris, out of whatever, corner they've moved her to into out in the forefront position where she can speak on behalf of the administration much more loudly, much more aggressively, and to get their cabinet members, out of the witness protection programs they all seem to be in, so that they can go out and make the case as well. This is an administration that has failed to amplify the messages that it needs to amplify about what it's accomplishing. When they do so, they may still get treated unfairly by some of the media, but it will be far less of a problem because we live in an era where it's much easier for political figures to communicate directly with the American people. So yeah, you can criticize the media, and I often do, but on this one, I think there's really a responsibility on the part of the president and the people around him.
John, President Biden's polling kind of blows. It's terrible. And it's as bad as Donald Trump's polling was. And obviously, these are two quite different presidents with quite different governance goals. Here's my question. The Democrats overwhelmingly support Joe Biden, like 91% support, just like the Republicans in Donald Trump's presidency, they overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump. And it was obviously the middle that Trump lost. It was the independents. Well, Joe Biden's also losing these very same independents. How does he win them back? Can they be won back? And if they're not, what does that foretell for next year's midterms, John?
But let's start at the end of that and then work our way back. If they're not, and if there isn't also sufficient mobilization of infrequent voters, which obviously are a big factor in midterms because that's where their infrequency is usually at its peak. If there isn't that, then the Democrats are going to lose the midterms really, really badly. They aren't just going to have a narrow setback in the Senate or the House. They could end up with a really serious setback, something that puts them in a dire circumstance in Washington, effectively making Biden a lame duck. And you could see really bad results in states, including a state like Wisconsin. So that's the big concern. And the way to shift that, obviously, is you've got to make a tangible difference in people's lives. They're already talking. They've nickeled and dimed the Build Back Better plan down to half of what was proposed in the summer to a third of what was proposed at the start of the presidency by at least progressives. They're not delivering at a level that's making a real impact where people feel it.
John, hold that thought. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. My fine guest, John Nichols from The Nation.
My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Very powerful.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
It's okay to have questions. Now, get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so that you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Spruce up your home with non-toxic vegan candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents that make a perfect holiday gift. Plus, at Wisco Home Goods, we believe in giving back. With our Do Good, Smell Good campaign, a portion of the proceeds go to local charities. So support a Midwestern company that supports our local communities. Order now at wiscohomegoods.com.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the-right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates. There are lots of people that haven't made up their mind on this race. And you think, how could that be? No, there are. There are a lot of people that could still make a decision all the way on election day down.
Undecided voters are the biggest idiots on the planet. Try giving short, simple answers.
Like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. Yosemites, Yosemites.
Because freedom.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the Friday Eve edition. I got a fine code devil for the rest of the hour. He is John Nichols from The Nation. John, I appreciate you sticking around. And I've got some breaking news for you, John, and for the audience. The January 6th committee, the question over whether or not Donald Trump had the ability to shield the National Archive records, the January 6th records, the ones that Joe Biden said, I have executive privilege and I do not extend it to you. Well, a 3-judge panel unanimously in a 68-page decision today said that Trump does not have any basis to override President Biden's judgment or the agreement and accommodations worked out between the political branches. Therefore, John, apparently it's moving on to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll see if they take it up. But, a little movement in the correct direction. They will not shield Trump's records. But, John, let me ask you about the ever so important news over on the boxing news. They don't have any outrage whatsoever for the January 6th insurrectionists. They were just doing some touristy sort of activities, but somebody burns their Christmas tree in Midtown Manhattan outside the Foxy News studios. Well, John, it's the war on Christmas, and Fox News is in the crosshairs. I have never heard Fox newscasters so victimized as they were yesterday. What'd you think of the whole burning of the tree?
Well, I'm against burning trees, at least until after the holiday. And I guess somehow people dispose of them. Although I like putting them out of the lake, especially if it's frozen lake. But look, I think there's some real revelations here, and some significant things. We've gotten to the bottom of at least some issues. Key to it, or first and foremost, Fox has a fake Christmas tree. And I thought, wow, a fake Christmas tree for fake news. That's a nice combination. Because you saw after it burned, what was left of it was sort of this metal infrastructure or whatever was there. And I can absolutely understand their outrage. You don't want anybody invading your space and doing harm to those things that you treasure and value. And so the only thing that's a little surprising to me is that they're so excited about that, but not at all excited about the invasion of space on January 6th, which that being our U.S. Capitol. We would expect this from Fox, I guess, but I was struck by some of the outrage. Was quite fascinating because one of their personalities was ranting on about how the tree symbolized everything that we valued. And she said Jesus and Hanukkah were represented by the tree. And so I'm thinking that was a very, very special Fox Christmas tree, as it crossed many different religious traditions.
Oh, that Ainsley. She's special.
Yeah, that's it. That was quite a statement by her.
My fine guest, John Nichols, he's a special guest. We appreciate you coming around, John. So what about the Christmas cards being shared by, let's call it, a few of the congressional Republicans, people like Thomas Massey
with a gun
and Lauren Boebert, and they're trying to outdo one another. The whole family's got AR-15s, Santa send ammo. And obviously there was another school shooting, not that that's a rarity in this nation, John, but a school shooting in Oxford, Michigan last week. And neither of these reps represent that district, but still very coarse and bad timing. And, of course, they were just trying to troll the left, John. I think that's ultimately what so many of them do instead of governance. But, what AR-15 would Jesus carry around? What do you think, John?
Don't think there'd be a weapon in the Nazarenes tradition there. It kind of goes against the turn the other cheek message. Look, the reality of what these Republicans are doing is that they're showing exactly who they are and where they come from. That on a holiday that they would of course be very offended if some liberal was to blaspheme or to in some way disrespect. They're more than happy to blaspheme and disrespect with shows of weapons and calls for ammunition. And it's interesting because I'm not usually one who misses Bill O'Reilly, but of course, as we recall, Bill O'Reilly was very, very concerned about the war on Christmas. And I would be quite intrigued to hear his commentary on Republican members of Congress arming up for the war on Christmas.
John, is perhaps the Democrats' best weapon in the midterms next year? Obviously, very narrow margins in both the Senate and the House. Is it possibly the Republican caucus is the Democrats' best weapon?
No, I'm going to disagree on that one. I'm going to say it's Trump himself. I think that Donald Trump remains a brilliant tool, and I especially like the suggestion by some Republicans that they would like to use the kind of quirk in the Constitution that would allow them to elect Trump as Speaker of the House. I would hope that they keep talking that up so voters can ponder that concept. But yeah, the Republican caucus is certainly a part of what benefits Democrats. The more Republicans in Congress show themselves to be who they are and what they are. And the more that Donald Trump, kind of amplifies and extends that, the more you'll see the prospect that people may come out and once again, as they did in 2018 and 2020, vote against letting these people have power. And so it's clear that the Republicans are benefiting the Democrats to the extent that can happen. But the challenge, of course, is that in a low turnout election, which midterms usually are, that the Republicans are going to come out, full force. Their hate is going to bring them to the polls. There's no question of that. And yeah, there's a possibility that a disdain for the Republicans will bring Democrats to the polls. But at the end of the day, I think it's vital for Democrats to do more than that, to frame the midterms out for what they are, a real battle between democracy and those who oppose democracy, and also a real fight for what can come from a successful democracy where you do have representation of the will of the people, and that is, real programmatic and transformational change. So I think you can run against the Republicans. That's great, and that's fine, and that's useful, et cetera, whatever phrase you want to use. But you've also got to show that when Democrats have power, they deliver, that they get things done. And I do think that all of that comes down to a lot of messaging. And I think at this point, Democrats have still got some work to do in that regard.
Well, let's not forget, Democrats, you're not feckless. You're incompetent. According to my pal, John Nichols from The Nation. John, really appreciate you coming by on this Friday Eve, man. Happy holidays. I'm sure we'll talk someday soon.
I look forward to it. Take care.
Thanks, John. More Devil's Advocates. Hour 2 is next. Please stick around. Phone lines, they're open. We'll take them in hour 2 at 844-967-2789.
Do you see that strange fire? A bush that burns? It is on fire, but the bush does not burn.
The tree by fruit offers elegance and sophistication.
You only have two cheeks.
At Knuckleheads, our knowledgeable staff knows the ins and outs of CBD. Whether you're a veteran of cannabis like the Double Radio team or a first-time customer, the Knuckleheads team has the information to answer all your CBD questions. Never heard of a tincture? We got you covered. Looking for something to address those achy joints? We got just the thing. Stop into our new location at 520 State Street and mention Double Radio to our knowledgeable staff to get 15% off your order today. Knuckleheads, your one-stop shop for CBD in Madison.
The cold weather is coming, and for a lot of Wisconsinites, that means hibernating inside your house and praying for a good football season. But you could have an unwelcome guest in the house, and I don't mean a Vikings fan. I'm talking about radon, the second leading cause of lung cancer. Now, don't panic. You can work around it, but first you have to find out if you even have it. Work with the pros at Orion Inspections. That's Orion, like the constellation, not the Irish guy. Schedule your test today at orioninspections.com.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. A federal appeals court rejected an effort by former President Donald Trump to shield documents from the House committee investigating the January Capitol riot. He has cited executive privilege. The panel cited a unique legislative need for documents by the committee. President Biden held the first White House Summit for Democracy. He sounded an alarm about a global slide among democratic institutions.
In my view, this is the defining challenge of our time. Democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people.
The number of people filing for unemployment plunged to the lowest level in 52 years. Households, on average, are earning higher incomes than before the pandemic and paying higher prices, and people are noticing.
In an AP-NORC Center for Public Affairs research poll, about a quarter say their incomes have gone up, while 2/3 say their household costs have risen since the pandemic. 4 in 10 say the hit has been substantial. The government's latest look at consumer prices is expected to show inflation soared by 6.7% last month compared to a year earlier, and would be the highest jump in nearly 4 decades. Top White House economist Brian Deese knows it's hard.
No one likes to pay more at the gas pump. Nobody likes to pay more at the grocery store.
But Deese says the stark numbers do not necessarily necessarily reflect the real world, where he says gas prices are coming down and supply chain bottlenecks are easing. Sagar Magani, Washington.
The Senate is moving ahead with a fast-track plan to raise the debt limit. At the manslaughter trial of Minnesota police officer Kim Potter, Daunte Wright's girlfriend, Elena Albrecht Payton, testified about being in the car when Wright was shot.
I was just trying to have him talk to me and just kept saying, Daunte, just say something, please, just talk to me.
Stocks finished lower, the Dow down less than a point. This is AP News.
In times of fear, World Vision is there for the most vulnerable. For the last 70 years, we've been standing with kids and families through natural disasters, war, and disease, delivering life-saving aid and helping rebuild lives. And with every act of courage, faith, and love, we do more than just stop the spread of fear. We replace it with hope. Learn more at worldvision.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Talk radio made for the 99% on Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
We face real challenges. My name is Peter Pekarsky, and I approve this ad stating that I'm running for the U.S. Senate to replace Ron Johnson because some people see things as they are and ask why. Others dream things that could be and ask why not. Why not provide health care as a basic right? Why not have broadband all over Wisconsin? Why not end systemic racism? Why not send a real progressive to the Senate? Visit PekarskyForWisconsin.com and support this ad paid for by Pekarsky for Wisconsin.
This is Chad Spate. Are you thinking about improving or expanding your home? At Chad's Design Build, we're committed to making your home comfortable, healthy, attractive, durable, and sustainable. In fact, those commitments spell our name. And we deliver these services with our outstanding team of professionals who will respect you and your home. Visit our website at chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more about how we are building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
Quality CBD is your Madison cannabis experience destination. Different than the head shops, Quality CBD is gallery quality art, ambiance, and a Bella bar experience that's second to none. Enjoy kombucha and a Bella glass full of vaporized, legal Delta 8 cannabis. Slow down, relax, and enjoy the experience. Only at Quality CBD, 1222 Williamson Street. Come for the Quality CBD, stay for the experience. Quality CBD, 1222 Willie Street. Quit surfing the dial. You already found the greatest radio station ever, Devil Radio, on 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services Secretary-designee Karen Timberlake announced the agency is requesting 5 federal emergency management agency teams, 100 federal workers, to assist struggling healthcare facilities across the state. More than 200 hospitals and long-term care facilities have requested staffing assistance due to the stress the COVID-19 pandemic has placed on the healthcare system. The FEMA teams will join the Wisconsin National Guard, recently deployed by Governor Tony Evers, in assisting facilities across the state. As of yesterday, 118 patients in Dane County were hospitalized due to COVID-19, and the state reports 97% of ICU beds in Wisconsin are occupied. 60% chance for snow this morning, turning to overcast skies this afternoon. Winds up to 15 miles an hour and a high today of 39 degrees. Light and variable winds expected this evening with mostly cloudy skies and an overnight low of 28 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Want to thank my most recent co-devil, John Nichols from The Nation magazine. Thanks, John. Happy holidays to you and yours. And hour 2, we lead back with some good news, everyone. And I only half say that tongue-in-cheek. A Christmas tree has risen from the ashes, much like the Phoenix in Midtown Manhattan at the Foxy News Center. Fox News All-American Christmas tree has been rebuilt. They made it stronger. They made it bigger. They made it better.
It was rebuilt?
It was rebuilt. You didn't realize that it's not really a tree. It's like a metal infrastructure with tinsel and some lights and apparently some flammable materials. Here's a quote from Fox News Media CEO. "We will not let this deliberate and brazen act of cowardice deter us." It's top of the page. Fox News, very excited that they're relighting the tree. It's going to happen live today on the 5. And they got, the cast of characters, everyone, including White Santa, damn near. Fox News Media will debut its newly built, interesting play on words there, newly built. I thought you grew a tree, but they newly built one. It's their All-American Christmas tree with an on-air tree lighting ceremony after the first one was destroyed in an arsonist attack. That was sad news. I was hardly gleeful at all. The ceremony will take place during Thursday's installment of the 5. Fox News' Lawrence Jones and Abby Hornacek, who co-hosted the first tree lighting ceremony. I got to admit, Lawrence and Abby, never heard of you guys. You must be secondary Fox News players. Only bring them out for like tree lighting ceremonies, which is not a big deal until you make it a big deal.
I'm going to just go out there on a limb. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen pictures of them, but I'm going to say they're likely white and or blonde. Just throwing it out there.
It's a pretty good bet.
I'm going to say 51%.
You know who's going to be alongside for this second tree lighting ceremony? Oh, talking about the stars shining bright. We got Steve Ducey. We got Ainsley Earhart. We got Janice Dean. We got Mike Rowe, the pickup truck guy.
Poor Mike Rowe.
Pete Hegseth, Rachel Campos Duffy, Todd Pirro, Carly Shimkus. I mean, this is all for a tree lighting party. And they got religious people involved as well. They've got Cardinal Dolan, our contributor, Reverend Jacques DeGraff, and Rabbi Joseph Potasnik. So think about that for just a minute. Ainsley Earhart, Airhead, what's her name? Ainsley Earhart.
Yeah.
Said, this tree represents Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all sorts of holidays.
If you want to get to the root of it, it represents paganism, but that's fine.
It's a multicultural Christmas tree / Hanukkah tree / whatever you want to make of it. Call it an all-American tree. But we made fun of her for calling it a Hanukkah tree.
Yeah.
But then they invited a rabbi either to give her a little air cover, talking about the airhead. Ainsley Earhart. The Jewish don't celebrate with the tree, do they?
No, they have
something about a menorah.
And menorah, they're celebrating the light. They only added enough oil for one day. It lasted for multiple days.
Is there a possibility that the menorah on the last All-American Foxy News Christmas tree is the actual cause of the fire?
I don't know, but I think they have the arsonist in custody. So
they apparently do.
Perhaps if you're going to make a fake tree, maybe making it flame retardant. I'm just throwing it out there.
Here again, a quote from the Fox News Media CEO, Suzanne Scott. This from yesterday, earlier this morning. This was tragic news. Fox News Media All-American Christmas tree outside our building on Fox Square was set on fire in a malicious arson attack. The 50-foot tree, which was just lit in a beautiful on-air ceremony on Sunday night, was engulfed in flames and smoke permeated the building. So they're smoking the Fox over there. There were no injuries. I guess there were no injuries. And thankfully, all employees working inside the building remained safe throughout the duration of the fire. We are very grateful to the Fire Department of New York, which quickly mobilized to extinguish the fire, and the police that apprehended the criminal on site, who has since been charged with arson amongst multiple other crimes, like attacking our Christmas tree. Our security team also did a great job of responding to the incident immediately. Well, did they? They let some guy burn down your Christmas tree. They were very preemptive. I'm just saying.
Prevention is really the best way to do this. Maybe making a tree that doesn't light up in fire, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Fox News security spotted the suspect, later identified as Craig Tamananaha, climbing the 50-foot tall tree in the center of Fox Square just after midnight. The 6th Avenue and 48th Street location is in the heart of Midtown. NYPD officers arrived at the scene and saw the suspect running from the location. They took him into custody before filing charges that included criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, and arson. City firefighters managed to extinguish the blaze. Yeah, but not before it basically burned back to its metal tree infrastructure. Here, again, a quote from the Foxy News people. This has become a new wonderful tradition on Fox Square over the last 3 years. I mean, it's a 3-year tradition. We will not let this deliberate and brazen act of cowardice deter us. We are in the process of rebuilding and installing a new tree as a message that there will be peace, light, and joy, and world domination by Fox News. We are currently planning on a lighting ceremony that, again, is today for the new tree, and we'll send those details once we have them. Well, it's today during the 5, and they're turning out everyone. Mostly. I don't see Hannity or Tucker on the list, and really, it's not a tree lighting without the former president. You think Trump will call into like a large open area? Hey, everybody. They'll put him up on the video screen or
down
something.
the road here. Just figured I'd call in instead. Stuck in traffic.
Well, Donald Trump is technically dodging deposition in New York, and apparently,
that's right. He can. Oh, yeah.
Letitia James, who is the attorney general there and has withdrawn her name from consideration as the next governor of New York, apparently wants to concentrate on a few very important prosecutions she's got on her desk. Well, the deposition actually technically for Donald Trump would be about the Trump organization and their perhaps fraud, alleged fraud, reported fraud. And the fraud was basically they would tell, the bank, this building's worth $1 billion. And then they would, tell someone else, let's say the taxing authority, oh no, this building's worth $50 million. Well, those are dramatically differential numbers. I'm just grabbing them from where.
You can't do that?
Well, no, that would actually be construed as fraud, bank fraud.
Huh.
And when you sign any of these application sort of documents, I know because I borrowed some commercial money through the years, you make a representation that you're telling the truth and nothing but the truth, or you're subject to criminal penalties. So anyways, Donald Trump is supposed to be deposed on January 7th. Ironically, 1 year and 1 day after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. I feel like he will be deposed. I mean, he can't avoid depositions at this point, unless, and here's the trick bag, the kicker. Cyrus Vance in New York is also looking to do criminal prosecutions for the very same allegations that are being investigated. Let's call it real estate tax fraud, valuation fraud. Well, if there is a civil suit and someone is deposed, well, they're being deposed under oath and they must give testimony. If you can be compelled to give testimony in a civil suit, the fear of Trump's lawyers, and it's a well-founded fear, is he's going to incriminate himself in the criminal suit. So he would therefore have to plead the fifth? to not incriminate during a civil deposition because he might incriminate himself. So you know what's coming next. Trump's lawyers are going to claim, because of self-incrimination, you cannot compel this man to go out there and testify about his prior corruption and criminality and banking fraud. To do so would mean he'd have to confess.
I'm throwing
You're
out
not his priest.
I'm going to throw out there the possibility that Donald Trump will maybe not go to prison, but will end up in a self-exile prison because he can't go anywhere lest he end up in prison, because he can't go to New York because he'll be deposed, and he can't go this way. So he's going to end up in a self-exile where he can't go anywhere but these square footage, because otherwise he might expose himself to being, served or deposed or whatever.
There was some fear prior that, there could be some indictment that came down, and Trump being in Florida and Mar-a-Lago for the, biggest part of the year. Well, with Ron DeSantis down there, DeSantis could try to inject himself in the process and try to block the extradition of Donald Trump on state charges. Let's say the ones that could come down from New York State for, let's say, fraud.
Why would you, help your rival out?
But during the off season, apparently Trump travels to New Jersey, so he's close to, his Trump held properties in New York and probably a few mistresses up there in, Manhattan in the Midtown, allegedly. But Trump makes himself more subject to extradition when he's sitting in a state with a Murphy, right? The guy just won re-election. It was a really close race. But
what if they drop it in New Jersey and he has to he can't land somewhere?
Can't land. And
he has to keep flying.
The man without a country, because to land the plane would lead to extradition, subpoena, indictment. Well, we all have our dreams. Man's got a dream, right? That'd be fun, though. He'll end up in Russia. Do you see they sent him a little love letter, a little Christmas card from Pooty Poot from the Russian state media, but they call him Trump Pushka. Sort of a love letter. They miss them some Trump. I don't know why. In his own assessment, he was so hard on Russia.
What if he ends up in the same suite he was going to build for Putin?
The cherry on top suite, Trump Towers, Moscow. Doesn't seem likely. Come back. More Devils Advocates.
Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants.
They taste like burning.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
My neighbors have different opinions about COVID-19 vaccines. Getting vaccinated is your choice. No one can make your mind up for you. Talk to your healthcare provider about your questions and go to getvaccineanswers.org for the latest information. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hi, Don from Wisco Home Goods here. Jeremy and I handcraft our 100% non-toxic candles from locally sourced materials in our Madison, Wisconsin facility. Wisco Home Goods candles come in a variety of unique blends and scents that you're sure to love. Add a little warmth to your home as the days get colder with one of our Midnight Cypress or Up North candles. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing candles and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
This song's called How High. We are the record company. We play rock and roll.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Welcome back from the 420 break. Phone lines, they're open. Your comments are appreciated here at 844-967-2789. Going to the phones right now, our pal, Mark from the SAC. Welcome back. What do you got?
Hey, I think the only time Trump's been hard in the past, I don't know how many, that past decade is with chemical assistance. So that's the only time he's been hard on anything in the past decade. And
I see what you did there, Mark. Go ahead.
And as far as for Fox News, I mean, it's really appropriate. They just have a fake tree for fake news that is Fox, that is Fox. And actually to say it represents Hanukkah is just a really a stretch, because the Yule tree, I mean, if it represents anything, it's a pagan symbol that Christians have adopted, and I mean, it's got nothing to do with Hanukkah. I mean, that is just, and if they're going to have, say, it was have all the religions there, why weren't the Druids? Aren't the Druids going to be present at the tree lighting ceremony?
I didn't see any Druids or any representatives of Kwanzaa.
If it was a real tree, you could make the argument for the Druids being there, but it still is not a real tree. So I don't think there's going to be any Druids inhabiting.
Maybe the steel worker should be there. It looks like a steel infrastructure in that boxy All-American Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa tree. It's the All-American tree, Mark. It's for all of us. You know, all of us red Americans.
It's ridiculous. I mean, because let's remember the first war on Christmas was declared by the Puritans in New England, because they didn't think Christmas was appropriate because it was joy, you know, having any kind of joy at all at this time of year. And it's not scripturally, you know, documented that there's a tree. So they opposed Christmas until, you know, it got too big for them to handle. So I don't know. It's just ridiculous that these guys are going on like this, because this guy's apparently some mentally disturbed individual did this, and they're trying to claim it's some war on Christmas. Well, happy holidays to all those at Fox News. Happy holy days to them as well. That's my 2 cents today.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. I'd say it worth at least 3 or 4 cents. 844-967-2789. At the end of the day, I don't think they're, you know, whether this person is mentally disturbed or just, you know, a rabid anti-Foxer, I don't think it had anything to do with the Christmas tree aspect. At least that's my impression. Nobody really, really hates a Christmas tree.
Well, yeah, I don't think that there was a spree of Christmas tree fires that he was planning. I think it was more against Fox than it was against the Christmas tree.
Now, if I come by your house and, you know, it's like Labor Day and you still got the lights and the tree up, then, you know, I'm starting to worry about you. But ultimately, I don't think anybody resents the tree or what it represents, unless, you know, by extension, it represents Fox News. Then I completely understand.
The only excuse I have that I can really accept for burning a tree is if you were smoking a stogie too close to it, and then you turned around and lit on fire.
I swear it's the Hanukkah tree menorah flames that lit that tree on fire. And Brian, I sort of bragged yesterday. I was invited to go back on Fox News. Hopefully this will be the important topic we discuss.
Congratulations. Why did you burn our tree?
Well, my thought is, had they not replaced, if they were not lighting a new All-American tree to represent, you know, the Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa holiday, well, then there's no way that I could possibly feel comfortable appearing on that fine show on December 19th. I mean, that is the Holy Week. Holy cow, you better have a tree, man.
See, I thought that you were going to bring your own tree and say, hey, I brought my own tree and have it in like the background here. And it's got the, you know, the at least a couple ornaments of the people that you want to put on the devil tree.
You know, since I'll be making that appearance from Las Vegas, Nevada, which has something of a, let's say, a reputation, I bet you I could put together a hell of a devil tree out there in Vegas.
Oh my, you might even find an entire entourage around you just to sit in the booth with you.
I wonder if I could show up with, you know, let's call them adult dancers.
The devil dancers.
For the devil dancers, the holiday, well, we call them the Yuletide Christmas dancers. And then, you know, it's Vegas. So Eventually, they all get naked.
Holiday devil ladies.
Do you think I'd be invited back on Fox in the new year?
Absolutely, just not on the air.
I'd be a production favorite.
And say normally this happens on our jets.
844-967-2789. Do you see Rupert Murdoch and his wife, Jerry Hall? Do you know he is married to Jerry Hall, who used to be married to Mick Jagger?
I don't. Hi.
So Rupert Murdoch's got the moves like Jagger?
No, I think just Jerry Hall has just bad taste, or could be motivated by something other than love. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
Well, here's what might keep her warm at night. And it's probably not the embrace of Rupert Murdoch, but they got a new house. Do you hear about the new house? $200 million house. $200 million for the shack.
I bet you they're there all the time.
The property, guess who they bought it from?
I know, but you go ahead.
A subsidiary of the Koch network, like think Koch brothers. Apparently it has 25 residences, this property they're buying, but mostly for the workers. Think of them as sort of indentured servants, serfs. Do they come with the property? Do I get the slaves?
I wonder if they negotiated that. That was part of the contract. Oh, you also inherit all the
indentured
workers.
I would like all the workers for the rest of their natural lives. And, upon my deathbed, if I'm feeling particularly gregarious, I might release one.
Well, I did tell Rudy that he was going to be free. I guess we're not going to. I'll leave it up to you to tell him whether he's free or not. How about that?
You giving Rudy 40 acres and a mule on the back 40?
My goodness.
At Rupert and Jerry's place?
We are down a hole.
Down in a hole. More Devil's Advocates. The 4 o'clock Happier Happy Hour. The Friday Eve edition. Can you tell? Brian wishes it was Friday right now. Wishes. The weekend was like 5 minutes away.
I had projected myself into tomorrow.
We're partying this weekend too, big guy.
I know. I need my rest.
And your party shoes. It won't be a party without you. Come back. More Devil's Advocates. It is a political party when you join us. 844-96-PARTY.
This is Chris Voss from the record company. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Because we're very high.
Just aim higher.
Because we're very high.
Here's how you get them. If they bring a beer, you bring an old-fashioned. If they bring cheese curds, you bring a casserole. That's how you make friends. That's the Wisconsin way. That's Devil Radio.
Hey, I'm here from Knuckleheads. Have you seen our new location yet? Come on down to 520 State Street for all your CBD needs. We have a huge selection of gummies, oils, and a variety of other CBD products. We also have a gigantic walk-in humidor. The knowledgeable staff at Knuckleheads will work with you to find exactly what you need. Mention Devil Radio at checkout to get 15% off your next order. Knuckleheads, now at 520 State Street. We'll see you there.
If you think you need a home inspection, you probably do. Hi, I'm Todd Osborne of Orion Inspections. And buyers, sellers, and even flippers, I'm talking to you. Knowledge is power when it comes to real estate transactions. You'll get an image pack, searchable, digital, printable report of the condition of the house, things to keep an eye on, any safety issues or defects, and the knowledge to make smart, informed decisions. Your instinct is telling you to get an inspection, and instincts are usually right. Learn more or schedule today at orioninspections.com.
Setback for Donald Trump's effort to withhold January documents. I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute. A federal appeals court denied Donald Trump's request the documents surrounding the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol be withheld from a House investigative committee. A 3-judge panel says executive privilege should not be invoked. Former Senator Bob Dole lies in state at the Capitol, where President Biden and other dignitaries eulogized the longtime politician from Kansas.
In this temple of liberty and to temple to possibilities, Bob Dole loved this Capitol.
The FDA has approved Pfizer's COVID vaccine for older teens, 16 and 17, saying even with a slight risk of heart inflammation, benefits outweigh that risk. A high schooler in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, in custody, bringing a loaded AK-47 on the school bus. The NASDAQ took a tumble today on Wall Street. I'm Jackie Quinn.
In times of fear, World Vision is there for the most vulnerable.
For the last 70 years, we've been standing with kids and families through natural disasters, war, and disease, delivering life-saving aid and helping rebuild lives. And with every act of courage, faith, and love, we do more than just stop the spread of fear. We replace it with hope. Learn more at worldvision.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. This week, Governor Tony Evers signed a piece of bipartisan legislation that was first campaigned on and proposed by Attorney General Josh Kaul in 2018 and 2019. The new laws are to prevent backlogs of untested sexual assault kits like Wisconsin had experienced in recent years by creating an expedited system for law enforcement and the Wisconsin State Crime Lab to process and store the kits. Wisconsin's largest utility companies, including Madison Gas and Electric, have joined a national coalition pledging to build a countrywide charging network for electric vehicles. The state of Wisconsin is facing a shortage of licensed therapists across the state, and the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services is struggling to process more licenses due to a worker shortage and an outdated system. A $4 million modernization project is slated to begin soon to address the delays. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates. So relevant, they have one foot in tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the 4 o'clock happier happy hour. It's rolling on, and your participation always encouraged. 844-967-2789. Saw an article published at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, polling done of Wisconsin women, specifically women from the state of Wisconsin. And here is a eye-popping headline. And I'll share some of this article with you, our fine audience. Half of the working women in Wisconsin are thinking about quitting. Half of all working women in Wisconsin are thinking about quitting. A little of the reporting, Sarah Hauer at the Journal Sentinel. Wisconsin women are considering leaving their jobs. The COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted life for almost 2 years, has altered how people think about work and caused an economic downturn that disproportionately affected women. Now, half of working women in Wisconsin are thinking about quitting their jobs. In this survey from the Milwaukee-based public relations firm Kane Communications Group and Santiago Global Consulting, 50% of Wisconsin working women said they'd consider quitting work constantly, often, or sometimes. Well, we all consider quitting work sometimes. This points to a crisis that companies need to think about. Half of the female employees in Wisconsin are considering quitting, according to Kimberly Kane. This is not a problem to throw money at. This is a values issue. And I'm going to read a little bit more, but I want to hear from the audience. 844-967-2789, especially if you're a woman in the state of Wisconsin considering quitting your job. And apparently, Fancy Brian, this is not just about money. Let me read on. In a national survey, 40% of women said they have considered leaving their company or switching jobs. The Women in the Workplace study by McKinsey & Company that said that recent high turnover rates suggest that those employees are following through. Now, Kane partnered with Santiago Global Consulting to conduct this survey. A sample of 980 working women in Wisconsin from the state's registered voter database were surveyed by phone and text message earlier this year. The sample of women was representative of the state's racial and political identities. It included women who live in rural, urban, and suburban areas, 3.1% margin of error, according to the researchers. They didn't include other gender identities, so it's unknown how women differ from other groups. The women in the survey said that Feeling undervalued in their current role was the primary reason for considering quitting. Feeling undervalued. Here's a quote from Catherine Wilson, a senior consultant and co-founder of Santiago Global. I would have thought it might have been wanting to leave due to personal or family reasons. African-American women in the survey were more likely to have left the workforce. Right now, again, a quote from Kane, right now, the operative word is considering. 50% are considering quitting. That means that employers have a chance to step it up. The report from Kane and Santiago Global has ideas for actions companies can take to retain female employees. Ideas include reverse mentoring, employee services like dry cleaning, and social listening. If we're not focused on the pipeline and engaging and retaining women in the workplace today, then the number of women will be depleted. Keynes will host a free webinar December 17th. There appears to be a sense that women in the survey did not feel that their employer cared about them. About 25% of the women in the survey say they did not think their employer cared about their mental health. Starts to be a big number. Women who are mothers in particular indicated that they are having difficulty balancing work and home life. The vast majority of women in the survey, 81%, said their jobs do not offer childcare support. 81% do not have employer-sponsored childcare. Nearly 70% of women in the survey say they have recently experienced some very or extreme levels of stress. The rate was higher for women who work in manufacturing, transportation, energy, and agriculture. And I got to assume radio. Employers should make retaining women in the workforce a top priority in the coming year, Kane said. Well, shouldn't employee retention always be sort of a big, important issue?
Yeah, but this speaks to something a little bit more deeper than just, employee retention, trying to get, the break room a little bit better. I mean, let's not forget, it was the 1970s. Women really had a hard time getting their own bank account, getting their own credit cards, having any sort of real independence whatsoever. And the mindset there, those people are still alive and in control of a lot of, the levers of power. And it's not necessarily a thing that's conscious either. It's something that you grew up in as well. But that's something that you actually have to consciously fight against. And it comes out naturally just because that's in people's being. So that's something they need to look forward to. It's deeper than just doing something better at the workplace. It's something like already knowing that they need childcare, already knowing that they need to be valued a little bit more and how to value them, not just saying, hey, I think you're a good female employee and you can wear some Hawaiian shirts on Friday.
Well, the researcher Kane says men have to stop leading and building workplaces that work for them. They have to recognize that women play a significant role in the success of a business and the overall economy. They want to ask how to build workplaces that are successful for everyone. Now, Wisconsin Working Women are under research group, Wilson says. She wants her research to have established a baseline for future studies. And while Wilson thought that women's responses would vary based on political affiliation or geography, there were few differences. Women in the Fox Valley area did report higher satisfaction at work and flexible work. Employers must be doing something right in that region. That was pretty much the only insight where the region stood out. So good job, Fox Valley employers. Kane's company, while rooted in communications, has had a mission to help businesses take responsibility for their place in the world. Conducting this research with Santiago Global is an extension of that, Kane said. And she expects Kane Communications will continue to take on research projects like this one. The firm's also getting more involved in helping clients develop corporate citizenship strategies. Women in the workplace, they're all going to quit, or at least they're strongly considering. About half of Wisconsin women, that seems like an astronomically high number. And when you talk about, no doubt, I guarantee, Fancy Brian, somewhere in the last week, you've thought, man, I hate this job. I like to quit, but oh yeah, I got to eat.
I mean, that's just something that people do in general. There's nothing to do with like this specific job, but yeah, I mean, people say things like that all the time. Oh, wouldn't it be amazing if I did this or I thought about this, but then you have to think about the reality of that whole thing.
But don't you think that people, I'm going through this in my family. My wife has been self-employed. She's a real estate appraiser. I think she's very talented. She's very good at her job. 22 years in, she's feeling damn burned out. And the fact, and I've got a special needs kid, and that has meant a hell of a lot more work for her. And currently, my wife tells me, she often feels distracted or she gets pulled in so many different directions. And I can't think of a single woman that probably doesn't experience that, especially family, mothers when they got kids and they got work responsibilities and something's got to give. Well, I know currently my wife wishes it was her workload. She's working very hard to see if she can get our eldest son into an adapted college program. And that's a big deal. And she tells me, Mike, I am not getting things accomplished in the same way I used to. And I'm thinking, you're so wrong. I've watched my wife working on this kid's education for 16 continuous years. The fact that I have a son who is on the autism spectrum that's going to graduate from high school, potentially go into college next year, has a girlfriend, has a steady job, is doing well, is a moral young man and a good human being. Well, that's a major accomplishment. But my wife had to put that effort in. I mean, anyone that knows me knows I'm something of a workaholic. I've always had lots of responsibilities at the office. Hey, hon, I got to go to the office. She's heard that a few million times in the last 19 years. So I know from my family's perspective, and the fact that, we got this kid on the cusp of perhaps what comes next for him, still got one living at home, still needs rides 3-5 times a day, going to work, going to school, going to the gym, whatever. We're still the Uber, we're still the family taxi. But it's different for my wife. I mean, I am so clear, and I cook occasionally, and I do my best to help out in the kitchen. I do some of the yard work, but it's not the same. It's not the same as the work level that my wife puts in. She is so clearly doing more and meeting the expectations of children and work. Well, if I don't meet my kids' expectations, too bad. Wish she had a better dad. But she didn't take that attitude. She takes it personally. If she lets the kids down or can't, give them the ride at a particular moment when they feel like they need the ride, she feels bad. A couple of Saturdays ago, I was laying down. My kid wanted to ride to the gym. We lived like 4 or 5 blocks from the gym. I said, what the hell are you waking me up for? Walk to the gym. If you're going to exercise, go walk to the gym. That's a dad answer. My wife will be out walking the dog. She'll walk farther home to give my kid a ride to a gym that's closer to our house in relationship to where she was out walking the dog at. But that's a different in attitude. I know she loves her kids, no doubt. But she's also responsive to the kids. And she also jumps when they say jump. Dad, less so.
I had a relatively almost opposite experience. I was the stay-at-home dad while Amy went to work right after her maternity.
You've been an actor. You've had non-traditional professional
yes.
jobs
So
often.
that also afforded me. I also got to a really big gig right before she was born. So it kind of really helped me out with, paying rent for a couple months. That's pretty nice. But I was a stay-at-home dad, and I have no problem doing that. I'm absolutely happy to do so. And then there was, in fact, I'm in a world in acting where that type of thing is championed and stuff like that. Bring your kid to the audition and stuff. And you got like 15 acting friends who are happy to go and help me out with watching her while I'm going into the audition and coming out, and everybody knows her and everything. In fact, she got a couple gigs out of this. My point is that Amy did the non-quote unquote traditional way of doing things, and I stayed at home and she didn't. And there was definitely, it's so weird how she felt like she wasn't doing anything. She felt like she wasn't doing enough, or that she was missing out, and she wasn't. And I'm like, if the roles were reversed, everybody would not even bat an eyelash or not even think about it differently whatsoever. But with her going to work, she felt guilty for not being home, because traditionally she's supposed to stay home, right? And she's supposed to be the caretaker, and our roles were reversed. And it was weird because both of us have no problem with it. We have no problem with each other. There was no issue between sharing the load between us. It was the cultural pressure, I would say, for lack of a better term. It's not like people at her work were saying, you shouldn't be here. That it's just the culture that we've been brought up in, and we have these certain roles for people that are stuck in there, and that's how we're supposed to do things.
I can't ever recall, and not my in-laws, I cannot ever recall a single time where anyone's ever said to me, Mike, you work so much, you should be home with your kids. No one ever said that to me.
In fact, we actually laugh at people. Oh, you got to go and take me home with the family, Duffy. Whatever. You're not going to do anything.
Well, in the case of Sean Duffy, we all know that was just a made up thing because he quit his job in Congress. Sean Duffy, congressman from the state of Wisconsin. His wife was pregnant. I think they're 9th. They are breeders, let me tell you. Rachel Campos Duffy, she'll be at the tree lighting at the Foxy All-American tree lighting. She's on the guest list, one of the dignitaries.
Who's watching the kids?
Sean. Of course, the former president trying to encourage Sean Duffy to run for governor in the state of Wisconsin, which just shows you because Rebecca Clayfish, the Republican wannabe, the former LT under Scott Wanker, came out, I love you, Donald Trump. I mean, her whole candidacy is, I love you, Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said, run, Sean, run. Loyalty. It's a one-way street. So anyways, Duffy may be encouraged to run for governor, although I think he lives in New Jersey. It's going to be a difficult commute to the office. But ultimately, he quit his job to spend more time with family, which meant taking a job on cable news.
Different family.
His broadcast family. You're my family. Come back. More Devil's Advocates.
I hate this job. I hate this damn job and I don't need it.
My mother was very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign and she wasn't even really sure where she was at.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Spruce up your home with non-toxic vegan candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents that make a perfect holiday gift. Plus, at Wisco Home Goods, we believe in giving back. With our Do Good, Smell Good campaign, a portion of the proceeds go to local charities. So support a Midwestern company that supports our local communities. Order now at wiscohomegoods.com.
The COVID-19 vaccines are starting to become available across the country. Now is the time to get informed. Get the latest information at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. A message brought to you by the Ad Council and the CDC.
I'm not a big fan of righty-whitey talk radio, but if I'm going to tune in even for an hour a day, I really wish they'd have a live host. They've still got a Rush Limbaugh show, and the guy's been dead for a couple months.
Playing like best of Dead Rush.
Do you know how weird that is? I make you this promise. After I'm dead, you don't have to keep playing my sound bites. Although I'm hoping you go first.
The Devil's Advocates, weekdays from 2 to 5.
What a drag it is getting old. Kids are different.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. One last segment in this big show. Then our pal Earl Ingram coming on right here on Devil Radio. But I got to talk about the senior senator. What's his role? Senior Senator Rojo Ron Johnson, great state of Wisconsin. And when I was a kid, Fancy Brian, they had this saying on the playground, not to be mean, but you need Listerine. Not a sip, not a swallow, but the whole damn bottle. And I took that advice. I am a guy that, doesn't like having funky breath. I've been a lot more attuned to this since we've been mask wearing for the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah, getting thrown back in your face.
Oh, suddenly I realize, why my wife occasionally cringes So I keep Listerine right in the car.
I may start doing that. My GI issues are having my own personal cloud is not a fun thing.
I know you burp a lot and I don't like it, but
I don't either.
Listerine will freshen the mouth, tingle the tongue, and apparently it will prevent COVID.
Oh,
according to my U.S. Senator.
Well, I mean, it's alcohol, right? Got a little alcohol.
Well, here's what Rojo claims. And I think we've got a little sound here as well. Going to need that sound. But I reference an article at the Raw Story. The senator has been criticized for spreading conspiracy theories about the coronavirus and has promoted the use of drugs, all the drugs, lots of drugs that have shown little to no evidence that they're effective to treating COVID-19. YouTube this year suspended Rojo's account for violating the company's medical misinformation policies. He's also expressed skepticism about the efficacy of coronavirus vaccine mandates and doses, which have undergone vigorous health testing. The Washington Post reported today. Now he's even recommending mouthwash as a treatment. Here, according to the press, is what Rojo said. Do we have the sound? Well, let's see. We'll play the sound. I'll fill in the blanks. Cut 1.
There are things you can do. Again, vitamin D, zinc, keep yourself healthy. Vitamin C, by the way, standard gargle, mouthwash has been proven to kill the coronavirus. Even if you get it, you may reduce viral replication. There's all why not try all these things? It just boggles my mind that the NIH continues to tell people do nothing. Maybe take Tylenol.
Maybe take Tylenol. Rojo actually said this on 92.7 FM.
Oh, really?
Rock County.
Oh, good.
Big radio. More of a righty-whitey talk radio outfit down there.
He doesn't come around here anymore.
Doesn't come around no more. No.
Maybe we need Listerine. That's the reason why.
So Rojo out there telling the world, Listerine will do you good. It'll keep you from getting the coronavirus. But
he'll say do anything possible besides get a vaccine.
His claim was quickly criticized. And I don't mean his claim that you shouldn't get vaccinated. I mean his claim that, Listerine's going to kill the COVID. And it's interesting because the makers of Listerine went out on their website and said, thanks, but you're not helping us. Here's effectively and exactly what they said. Though mouthwash can partially kill off parts of the coronavirus in a person's mouth, most infections occur through the nose, health experts said. A dental professional focused website run by Listerine, one of the world's most widely used mouthwash products, endorsed by Crudy, I got in the car, specifically says the evidence is not strong enough to conclude that it is helpful against COVID-19. Specifically, they said, Listerine is not intended to prevent or treat COVID-19 and should be used only as directed on the product label, to get rid of funky pre-mask breath.
I wonder how many times Listerine's PR department has had to be invoked. I don't know that they have a social media department lying around. They're not active on social media like Wendy's is. By the way, if you want to find someone entertaining and fast food, watch the Wendy's on Twitter.
Yeah, they're good. Real quick, the newspaper interviewed Raymond Naira, interim chair of the epidemiology department at New York University, who suggested that gargling would not hurt, but only if accompanied by a vaccination. Here's the quote. That way, one would be at reduced risk for infection and have good smelling breath. That's a win-win, folks.
Oh, okay.
So Rojo advocating Listerine to treat the COVID.
You know what? I'll say, I'll give it to him. I'll say it reduces the risk of infection. If the risk of infection, let's say, was, 10.1%, it brought it down to 10.05%. That's a little bit. I mean, every little bit helps, right?
Not to be mean, but you need Listerine if you want to beat the COVID. Mm-hmm. Not a sip, not a swallow, but the whole damn bottle.
Not to be mean, but my goodness, Like just having to activate Listerine, just having to have them going. Now I have to go and say something about this. Somebody is claiming my product is good for something it's not.
I mean, in the whole national branding conversation, communications, when a U.S. senator comes out and specifically endorses your brand, I mean, that's a win, right? Under most circumstances, that would be considered something of a branding win. You got U.S. senators. You're on the lips of U.S. senators doing interviews. You made the national news, yet you've got to come out and specifically renounce the endorsement of your specific brand. He named your brand Listerine.
Could you imagine
and
how
you
many?
must renounce him like Judas did 3 times.
Could you imagine the lawsuits from poison control centers if they didn't do anything? Like people are just straight up drinking, doing shots of Listerine just to go and ward off the COVID.
One final, I'd like to think, interesting thought before we end this big day. The debt ceiling crisis perhaps has been avoided, actually with the cooperation of some Republicans. Like 14 Republicans voted to clear a procedural hurdle that allows the Democrats in the U.S. Senate, with no Republican votes, to vote to raise the debt ceiling to pay the debt that was accrued under the Trump presidency. And a Missouri paper had an op-ed today, and this will be a final thought. They called it a sugar-coated Satan sandwich.
Delicious.
I like sugar-coated Satan sandwiches.
Hey, I'm a fan of devil's food.
You know, we are Devil Radio.
I like deviled eggs. Deviled ham's pretty damn good too.
Sugar-coated Satan sandwich. My Satan sandwich, little pastrami, marbled rye, some horseradish.
It's like if it's cut off in chunks rather than sliced. Oh my goodness.
John Nichols, my fine guest today. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got the Friday edition. We'll air the grievances on Friday. See you at the party Saturday. Fancy Brand's off tomorrow, or at least not in the office, but you'll still be working. You cannot quit. I was going to make a gender joke because women thinking about quitting, but anyways, I'll spare you, and I'll try not to offend anyone.
I'm completely blank after you said pastrami.
We'll end on that thought. Pastrami is the best of all the Satan sandwich meats. Have a great night. Thanks for listening to the Devil's Advocates.
He was literally breathing down my neck. My skin crawled.
I don't care what drug will work. Try a bunch.
At Chance Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodel